Scott, it's an interesting start to your year, right? You were supposed to have direct competition here in the market with a competing organization. They went away on this date. I wonder how that impacted, your expectations and the way you handle business for this event.
Honestly, when we announced this fight, we felt really good about it, and we felt like, it doesn't matter who it is, they got to bring somebody a really big show to impact this and have it on the same day. And that went away. So look, we have the date. It's going to be a great show. We've been building all year towards this event, and it's going to be an exciting fight.
It's a great final, like you said. I wonder, you can't determine what happens in a tournament like that, but is this the most intriguing matchup you think that could have happened in the finals?
Oh, absolutely. When you think about Fedor being the GOAT, to me the greatest fighter of all time, and has looked really good his last two fights. And what I mean by that is not just the way he's won, but he's looked really fast to me, very explosive. And, Ryan to me arguably could be, pound for pound, one of the best fighters right now, and he's, in his prime. So, it's going to be a tough fight for Fedor, but listen, the guy has always stepped up and delivered over and over, and we're going to see something, I think, really spectacular on Saturday.
Fedor's hinted that retirement could be looming, maybe after this, maybe a few fights in the future. I wonder if you have any insight behind the scenes on what he's been telling you.
We've had a brief conversation about that. I think that, I think just depends on what happens, right? He comes out, looks great, does great. I think that he'll have one direction. If it doesn't work out for him, I think he might have another direction. But that's something that only he knows, and after the fight he'll know. And you can ask him after the fight.
Yeah. I want to ask you about Ryan as well. He'd be in this unique champ situation, right? And first for you guys, has he given you any indication, or do you have an idea of, if that happens, how you would proceed? Would you allow him to try to defend both belts, as he said he'd like to? How does that go?
Yeah, you know what? I think he said he would like to, I think we would do both as long as it made sense. And it's sometimes titles get jammed up, meaning that there starts to become a group of fighters underneath waiting. So as long as that didn't happen, we would probably let him fight in both weight classes.
Last thing for me on this tournament, I just want to ask you, now that, we still got to wait till Saturday night to see what happens, right? But now that we're here, we've reached this long build-up. How would you grade the success of what you did here?
Yeah, listen, this has been a tournament that has made a big impact on the overall business, not just domestically, but internationally. And it's done, great ratings. The main events have always delivered on these fights. And it's a storyline, and that's what I loved about it. I said, look, guys, let's do this tournament. And you're putting 8 guys in there that all have names of their own, right? And these guys are brands of their own, and some of the biggest brands in the world. Let's put them into a tournament. Let's create a storyline and let them. This thing will unfold on its own, and it's been a great piece of business for Paramount and for Bellator. Couldn't be happier.
Scott, the co-main event, Pico versus Corrales, is that a title eliminator? Could it be a title eliminator at featherweight?
I definitely think that that it could be. We haven't said that it is, but just like we like to watch the fights to see what happens, and we'll go from there, because you never know what's going to happen in a fight, and how great it will be, or how much of a advancement a certain fighter will have moving up in the ranks. But that's one of our biggest weight classes as far as having so much depth, and I think Pico is and Corrales is going to be a great representation of what that division has to look forward to. But we'll see after the fights if that's going to be eliminated or not.
Could there be a Grand Prix in that weight class at some point down the road?
There could be. There could be. Honestly, we haven't sit down and really mapped it out. But think about all the great featherweights in that division. It's just mind blowing. So it could be.
You guys have Jake Hager making his pro debut on this card, of course, of WWE fame. Noticed that Bellator was running ads on WWE Raw and WWE
really?
SmackDown.
Okay.
You didn't know that?
I did not know that. That's great marketing by Paramount and Viacom. So they got to take credit for that.
Do you believe that he will draw some of that audience in who are curious to see him fight?
I tell you, absolutely. And one thing I've noticed in being in the MMA business such a long time, or martial arts fight business, or combat sports, whatever you want to call it, there's a crossover. And when Bobby Lashley was fighting, you saw a crossover, right? When Punk was fighting, you see a crossover. And when somebody like, Jake fights, you're going to see a crossover. And so, yes, the answer is 100%.
You have a scouting report on Jake? What have you heard behind the scenes?
I heard he's been training hard. And, we had confidence in him. And the reason why is because he comes from a real collegiate wrestling background. And he understands MMA, trained, and was really willing to make that sacrifice of training in a real MMA gym and working out with some real MMA fighters. But it all goes back to the basics. Like, if you don't have that kind of background, whether it's jiu-jitsu, wrestling, Thai boxing, judo, you're going to be at a disadvantage. And so, he has one of those blocks, marks checked off because he's already done it. And so now he's got to take it from there. And we'll see, because this has been, what, I want to say 8 months? It's been almost a year since we announced him. So, he's putting in a lot of work, and my guys are saying he's ready.
Any update on that Kyoji Horiguchi and Darian Caldwell fight that's supposed to take place in Bellator?
Yes, that fight, we hope to have that fight sometime in summer here in the U.S.
And is it safe to say the winner of Archuleta and Diaz will fight the winner of that fight?
You know what? Like, those are all possibilities, but let's see how it all unfolds.
A lot of the UK fans are wondering, how did the MVP Paul Daley fight not end up across the pond? Can you talk about the decision, the scheduling? Of that one?
Yeah. I mean, I think we talked about this before with Gareth at great lengths, but honestly, it's it comes down to the tournament is on DAZN, and they wanted to have it in the United States. I went to see James Rushton in the UK, and I asked him, "Do you guys mind if we do this one event in the UK, because we should have this fight in London?" And he said, "You know what?" He said to me, and I'll give him a lot of credit. He said, "Absolutely, I think it should be here too. So go ahead and do it." And then the issue was, in February we couldn't find a venue to do that fight in London. So we said, if we're going to have to do it outside of London, we might as well do it, in the New York area, and that's why we chose to bring it here to the U.S.
Scott, Gegard Mousasi was supposed to defend his title on this card on Saturday. Any update on his condition and any idea when he could be back?
Boy, I tell you, last I heard from him, he's thinking about an April-May type comeback fight. So that's kind of what we're looking at.
Would it still be Lovato, or could Machida possibly be the contender?
Yeah, that I'm not sure.
What about Canada? You guys haven't been back since May of 2014. You've got Julia Budd as your champion. You've got Rory McDonald. Any chance you guys are going to come back to the Great White North?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, with Rory McDonald on our roster, that's been a goal of ours. And to be honest, it's just been really challenging getting the right date to match up with our TV date. Yeah. And that's been the only hang-up is in Toronto is they have hockey and basketball and concerts, and there's just a very busy building, so it's been tough.
What about Vancouver? Because Rory and Julia are both from there. Is that something you consider? I know the commission can be a bit of a nightmare, but would you look at that as well?
Yeah, I think that the people that book our buildings are looking everywhere, and when the months that we need those fights are tough for them, and the months that are available is tough for us. So we haven't matched it up, but we will. We will be in Canada. I mean, I think before 2019 is over, we'll be there for sure, at least one time.
And last Canadian question, Mandel Nallo has looked great in your promotion. We saw that in his last fight against Carrington Banks. Any chance we'll see more of a push from him, just because he looks like a pretty good prospect for you guys?
Yeah, that's something that, feel free to talk to Rich about that, and he'll have a good answer for you.
Scott, what do you think at this stage in his career, this kind of fight and this kind of tournament does for Fedor's legacy?
When I sat down Fedor, I'd say 15 months ago, I told him about what we're doing, and he was all about it, and he wanted to come compete. But if he would have said no to me, he still would be the greatest fighter of all time. But if he can win this, especially against a fighter like Ryan, I think this cements his legacy in the sport. And, he's already done it all, and he could have retired, to me 3 years ago. He just has that certain, X factor that I don't think a lot of fighters, especially heavyweights, have that.
Sometimes people express concern about fighters fighting into their 40s and, past what a lot of people think is their pinnacle. Do you look at that in a similar fashion? Do you want to see him keep fighting? I mean, obviously it'd be good for business, but I mean, personally, as someone who's seen Fedor fight for years, do you want to see him keep fighting?
I mean, listen, a fighter should not fight past, the time he's supposed to stop, and really that's between us and the promoters and the fighter. I mean, the trainers and the fighter himself. But from what I saw his last 2 fights, he looked pretty good to me, and his twitch speed looked better than I've seen it in a long time. And the thing about it, listen, when Matt and Fedor hit each other a year and a half ago, and they both went down, Matt got up a little bit sooner than Fedor did, and then the fight stopped. That fight within a millimeter of a second, could have went the other way if he would have got there first. So, and heavyweights, one shot and it's over, and that's just how it is for heavyweights, and that's the division Fedor's in. So, to land a big punch and he gets stopped, does that mean he's over? No, it doesn't mean he's over. It means that, he's a heavyweight. Heavyweights get punched, and when they get punched, you get hit really hard, and that's what happens. So, I'm having an intelligent conversation with Fedor. We're talking about a lot of other things other than fighting, and and to me, if that wasn't the case, we'd be having a different conversation.
Scott, you guys work often with the California State Athletic Commission. You will again this weekend. They made somewhat of a controversial decision last month to license Jon Jones, despite, I guess, recurring abnormalities in his drug test. Any concerns about that with the commission? Any conversations you've had with Andy Foster about that kind of thing?
I called Andy Foster. It was a private conversation. I'd like to leave it at that. But just from a company standpoint, I think it's very disappointing. You go out there and you put your reputation on the line for health and safety and all the weight cutting things, and we've always supported the commission, and we'll continue to support the commission. But listen, if a fighter has PEDs in him, he's got PEDs in him. That's how I feel. To be the judge, the jury, and the executioner now, it's a little bit challenging for me to accept, but it is what it is. And I always say we're going to apply, go by the commission rules, and we will continue. But I don't think that was the right call, and that was his call to make. And really, in the commission for 32 years, I've been with the California State Commission. I think this is one of the few times I've ever said, "Hey, this is not right." And you know what? We'll see what happens with that.
Ilima-lei McFarland's hinting that she's got a fight coming up. Can we break some news here today? What's next? For
Is
her?
that what she said?
She said, "Stay tuned for."
Is she here? Is she here right now?
She posted something on Instagram, so kind of hinted at it.
Yeah, listen, we can't just fight her in Hawaii once a year, right? So she will fight when we go back to Hawaii, but we're going to try to fight her sometime in the late spring or early summer, and we're going to hopefully have it all ironed out by Saturday night.
You have an opponent lined up yet?
I think they almost do, so let's just hang on until Saturday night.
Scott, you were asked about Michael Venom Page and Paul Daley and that going ahead in Connecticut, of course. The week before that, you've got Bellator, Newcastle, Corey Browning against Aaron Chalmers and Pitbull against Ryan Scope.
Right.
You've also got Bellator Dublin around that period as well. Let's hope everything doesn't collapse. It's a signal, presumably. I know that, as I say, Daley and MVP's in Connecticut, but it's a signal that you're going to make very big strides in Europe and potentially announce a TV deal soon for the British market.
Yes. We have a press conference in London slated for, I want to say, the 6th of February. And so we'll have a lot to announce then. So we have some really good, TV stuff to announce, and we have some dates to announce, some different cities, and we're going to go on our way. And the beauty, I'll just say this, the beauty about that circuit is that it's going to be built for the Europeans and the UK, and it'll be in your time zone and prime time, and it's not going to be at 3 o'clock in the morning where
So you'll be watching at 3 in the afternoon instead, yeah?
Probably 1 o'clock in California.
Yeah, 1 o'clock, yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Last thing from me, Scott, have you planned Michael Chandler's next move? I mean, no surprise, him and Patricio's still been chirping back and forth a little bit. Does that look like a fight you want to make, or what's his next move?
We just kind of let Michael rest a little bit since the holidays. We'll get back to him. But that is a fight that a lot of people want to see, it seems like. And my guys keep talking about it. So, that would not be a bad call.
Scott, you've kind of upped your Twitter game a little bit recently. Is that you? Is that for sure Scott Coker tweeting?
Yeah, that is me. I mean, listen, it's like, why not have some fun with it, I mean, if sports teams are doing it now, right? It's not just me and, like in the fight game, but everybody's doing it, so why not have some fun with it? Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Scott.